It's Doctor Who Sunday.
Hello and welcome back to Chat About It, Don't Shout About It with me, Rachel, the Queen of the Woke, as crowned by one of my haters.
I crown you Queen of the Woke!
Let's chat about it.
Today I am reviewing the Battle of Ranskoor of Kolos, a Jodie Whittaker story. Sorry if I butchered that name. I don't really care too much about the Jodie Whittaker series, but I do apologise just in case. It was written by Chris Chibnall and it aired on 9th of December 2018. It is the finale, actually, of the first series for Jodie Whittaker. Please let me know what you think of this particular story in the comments section below. And please do keep it friendly with each other in the chat. The Doctor and her companions receive a distress signal from an unknown ship. They land on Ranskoor of Kolos, and the Doctor gives the neurobalancers to wear so that they were able to think clearly and remember things. Because there are things are going on that are blocking their minds. So powerful. They meet a man who they discover is named Paltraki, and he is the commander of the ship that had sent out the distress signal. His crew were being held hostage, and the reveal that a stenza wanted an object that he took back. Right, so this has got the Doctor very suspicious because they've met the stenza before, all four of them. The Doctor decides that they need to go after the stenza and also rescue Paltraki's crew. They get onto the building that is holding the stenza. They separate and go on their mission to look for the crew, and obviously the Doctor goes to find the stenza, who she discovers is Tim Shah, the stenza that she had banished 3,407 years previously. He had landed on the planet and chosen not to die. He had manipulated the Ux into believing that he was a god and used their telepathic dimensional engineering powers to steal the planets from orbit and condense them down. He was planning to destroy the planets of anyone who had, in his opinion, wronged him. Therefore, his next target was Earth, and this was because he blames the Doctor for what happened to him. He sets the Ux to work. The Doctor has no choice but to put the neurobalancers on the Ux to stop them from dragging the planet out of orbit. She is able to convince them to work with her to put the planets back in place. Graham and Ryan are also able to free the hostages and lock Tim Shah up into the stasis. The Doctor is able to save all but one, and the Ux have their freedom again. Right, shockingly, I have a lot of praise for this story. I know it's shocking, okay? This is probably my second favourite Jodie story in this particular series. I didn't actually write any negatives other than to drop the word fam. It was horrible. I hated that. Fam. Alright, fam. No, it really irritated me. Like it was some kind of quick, quirky catchphrase that was never needed other than my opinion of Jodie's being the Doctor. I couldn't fault this particular episode as much because it did what it was supposed to do, and that was tell the story, something which is quite often waylaid nowadays in the show. You could easily take this story, if you're just looking at it out of the context of Jodie's Doctor, and give it to another Doctor. It would work a million times better, in my opinion. So my question is to you, which Doctor do you think could actually do this particular story? Might make for a good Capaldi story, in my opinion. I don't know. What do you think? I do know that this is a little bit of a rehash with planets being taken out of orbit, but overall the concept works absolutely fine. You can't really go wrong too much with this type of concept. I do think it is an interesting aspect that they added beings, the Ux, with telepathic engineering powers that could shift entire planets and encase them into this casing and make them extremely light. So the characters, the Ux, who are dimensional engineers with powers that seem amazing beyond belief, a nice new creation, thankfully not very overused. Are they unique to Doctor Who? Probably not within the creation. However, This was a new series, and they were doing things differently. So Chibs was trying out different characters with different concepts and ideas. Most of them I feel like were probably inspired by the Pertwee era. By the way, I tried to look it up, but I couldn't find anything. Who is his favorite Doctor? Is it John Pertwee? Which might explain why I think there's a lot of Pertwee isms in here and throughout the series, maybe. The concept of the Ux is good, but it's a concept that shouldn't be ever used. Thankfully, they've not done that. At least I don't recall them coming back in Jodie's era, but I've only ever watched until just recently Jodie's era through once, and there's only two of them as well, so that makes it a lot easier. They are made gullible though, and I'm not sure if this was a knock on religion or not. What do you think about that? They have faith, but Tim Shah makes them believe that he is the creator, so they follow him. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that. It is like they are saying that religious people, blindly follow their faith with no question throughout this particular story, and they have to be made to see it another way from a different perspective. Props to the story though as well though. The story has a pretty good pacing, and one of the things that it does focus on is telling it. Oh, thank goodness for that. The Sonic is overused though. It gets used I counted 12 times. You know me, I like to count the sonic screwdriver. Yeah, it's like a game. Although that was more for readings in this case rather than moving the story along than anything else. Normally, the resolution to Doctor Who since 2005 is quite often resolve it as quickly as possible. However, this did not happen here. The Sonic wasn't all that useful, all that much per se, to the resolution. Yeah, okay, the resolution is simple, relatively simple, but part of it was set up near the beginning, and I prefer that sometimes. Maybe a bit of ring theory was going on here to make the story feel, I don't know, more conclusive. I mean, we have Tim Shah from the beginning and at the end, and they've got the neurobalancers on, so the doctor gives Yaz, Graham, Ryan, and Paltraki a little bit later neurobalancers to keep them immune to these airwaves that these waves that are blocking the minds, and these neuro balancers make up part of the resolution. The doctor told us what they were for at the beginning and then realizes that it would help towards the end. When the resolution or part of the resolution is set up a lot earlier like that, it doesn't feel like it is coming out of the blue as much. Now, Paltraki was a good plot device. He's the commander of the ship, but he has not got any memory of what happened. The doctor puts a neurobalancer on him, and he very slowly starts to give out the information that they need for this particular story as his memory returns. This is integral because the doctor and her companions have no idea about what is happening on Ranskoor of Kolos. Having it revealed through a character we have no perspective with whatsoever in this case during the whole entire story is actually a pretty good idea. All right, I think it worked quite well. That's just a personal opinion. You don't have to like the story. It's okay if you don't. It really doesn't matter. One thing about the Jodie series that has remained consistent is costume design and special effects. I was overall happy with the special effects for the ending. The color grading was nice and bright for this. The pacing of it was very well done, and the tension behind it was fairly reasonable. It's not the most outstanding finale we've ever had. I mean, Stolen Earth, Journey's End, they're pretty good. The Doctor was in the correct place, resolving the issues with the planets. And that's how it should be. And she is the one who resolves the main issue whilst Ryan and Graham free Paltraki's crew and put Tim Shah into stasis. Now I'm on the subject of Graham and Ryan, and I am going to talk about this particular one. Let's talk about the family issues. Yay. One of the biggest mistakes that is made in Doctor Who, particularly in recent years, is dedicating separate time from the story to family issues, which makes it all a little bit dramatic, all a little bit soapy. What we have in this one, I will allow. All right, I will allow it. Graham and Ryan are having family conversation, but it's all split up between following the doctor's plan and putting that plan into action. It's about 30 seconds here and there, and it doesn't distract from the story, and it wasn't dumped on at the end or smack bang in the middle. This is the correct way of doing it if you are going to do it. If you want it to be in there, don't take away from the main focus of the story, which unfortunately there's one coming up where that does happen, unfortunately. But well, what can you do? Now, only not only that I also feel like this episode was the best acted from the main cast. They also all seem to know, what they are doing finally at this point. Even Bradley Walsh at this point is improved leaps and bounds. The writing allows for them to perform better, which is always very useful. If you've got good writing or better writing, you perform a lot better naturally. And the direction seems to have brought out the performances as well. And the cinematography seems to have aided all of their performances, including Jodie. Credit where credit is due. All right. I wondered if she was made to pull it back here. Less is more in this sense. Her doctor, and no, I still don't see her as the doctor just because I think she's better in this one, has energy that's all over the place. She does have probably the closest moment that she ever does to becoming the doctor at all. Graham said that he would off the stenza if he ever saw him again, and Jodie tells him to go back to the TARDIS. Now, it was not as blunt, all right, as perhaps what another doctor would say, but her intentions were extremely clear. It was not happening. The doctor even says that Graham would not be able to travel with her if he did do that, which would be consistent with the character. Very much so indeed. Whilst I think that would be better and much blunter and direct coming from another doctor like Capaldi or even Colin Baker, this was one of the better things that she has done as the doctor. And the bit later where she learns that Tim Shah was blaming her for the reason why he was stuck on the planet and that he was going to take the Earth and destroy it, her moment of panic and anger was fairly well done. Like, in general, doctor aside, I like her very much as an actress. I very much do. Credit to the makeup team as well. They had to recreate Tim Shah's makeup in his first story. He looks young and they made him look older in this and hooked him up to machines. I think Chibbs and Whitaker were blessed with visuals for costuming and makeup during the run. It made up for a lot of poor writing in that sense. However, I don't think that Tim Shah, he wasn't that memorable. This is the second time I've seen this story and I completely forgot that he came back. And I also remember not being all that shocked that he did return either. So it shows how much of an impact that the character had, or the series had, on me for that matter. Although the ring theory, yeah, it was pretty conclusive having him come back. I prefer this version though of his character as opposed to the first one. Much more wrath, and it was more believable having him manipulate the Ux, holding the crew hostage in return for whatever was taken, and making it his primary goal of taking revenge on the Doctor. Much better than playing a game and collecting teeth, right? Although I will say that is part of his character development. He, you know, he was quite rightly banished for pulling teeth, right? It also gives him a motive for doing what he is doing. So I suppose in that sense, I don't mind it that much. Well, what do you know? I like a Jodie story. Yeah, put it there. There are very few stories, so hats off to her for that, and to the writing team and everyone who made this particular story for making that one work, particularly her first. And next one, I also don't mind, but that's obviously for next week, but I do have a few issues with it. But yeah, like I said, that's for next week. But that's what I think of the story. Let me know what you think. Chat about it, don't chat about it. Thank you very much for watching. And I will be returning from holiday very soon. So until then, bye bye.
Thank you for watching today. Don't forget you can join me on my other platforms as well. I've got YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, X, TikTok, Instagram, Locals, Substack, and I also have a Discord. Everything is linked below.